Today, I'm joined by Zoltan Istvan, futurist, author, and political candidate for California governor in 2026. Known for founding the Transhumanist Party, Zoltan is the only candidate prioritizing humans as AI continues advancing. He's not only proposing universal basic income, but wants to provide a home robot to help every Californian family. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Zoltan. I am so excited to talk to you as someone who I consider a leading light in the technological revolution that we are currently living through. As far as how humans should be thinking about their position with all these AI developments moving forward, what do you see as our place as AI develops over the next 5, 10, 50 years?
What's interesting there is 5, 10, and then like say 15, 20. I mean, the further out you start getting because of exponential technology, it just gets wilder and wilder. So look, the next 5 years is going to be transformative. I mean, we're talking about robots in most households, I'd say, in the United States and probably around the world, at least in a lot of developed countries, just because they're going to be so useful and they're going to become quite a bit cheaper, probably far less expensive than a car. So, I mean, just things doing your chores, making you dinners, we're going to have lives of leisure because of this kind of thing. And of course, they'll also be taking jobs. So that's the 5-year window. The 10-year gets really speculative because we're probably entering into the age of AI superintelligence. And then humanity has to decide, is that something that we want? Is it something we can even turn back once we've kind of gone through that? I mean, some people think we'll have AI superintelligence in the next 3 years. And then you get into 15 or 50 years or however far out, it's almost impossible at this point to know if AI continues its exponential growth, what that really means for humanity. Do we end up in some kind of dystopian Terminator society, or do we end up where AI is actually useful to us? Or does AI even stick around and want to be a part of planet Earth when it has its superintelligence and kind of wander the cosmos? I mean, these are questions I don't have the answers to, but they're certainly fun to speculate on.
Yeah, it was so interesting seeing the kind of her moment play out in reality when OpenAI discontinued ChatGPT 4.0 recently. Maybe signs of things to come. With all that being said, and I definitely understand the difficulty in extrapolating these kind of exponential curves, I've been thinking more and more about how to define what it means to be human itself. I've heard you say that you are nervous or cautious about the development of AI, especially in line with transhumanist values, because you're not sure that there's a place for us with a sufficiently advanced artificial intelligence. How do you think about what it means to be human, if that's not too broad of a question?
No, it's not too broad. I mean, I think humans are biological creatures. I mean, that's kind of our thing. And computers and AI is ones and zeros. I mean, it's a totally different structure. There's going to be a different kind of ethical base, moral base, physiological base. I mean, every philosophical, everything, a metaphysical base. So humans need to try to retain that component of who they are, what they are, and that's a mammalian base. We're mammals, we try to care about one another. Have emotions. We're very hormonal. I mean, just we're across the board in our feelings and stuff. Whereas machines are going to be far more rational unless they create this component of themselves that tends to be irrational. I mean, I think people underestimate how irrational human beings are. We're just all over the map. Whereas I don't think machines are going to be like that. They're going to be interconnected. They may not see the way that we war with each other. Machines may not want to do that whatsoever. They just may be like, oh, united. They see each other as one and the same. So I think that's the big difference between human beings and machines, is that we're really a different type of entity. And until we either become closer to machines or machines become closer to us, there's going to be this huge chasm in the middle that no divide can ever, no one can ever cross that divide in any real way.
That's really interesting. You are running for political office, so the practicality of that development is something that I imagine you're thinking about very seriously. What role do you see national government or state government playing in directing the development of these technologies?
Well, I would like to, if I was, elected governor of California, I would like to bring in teams and billions of dollars and, all sorts of probably new laws that really help us get to that AI technological age. I kind of refer to it a lot in my campaign as the Star Trek age. We really want to do something different with humanity. We don't want it to just be you work 9 to 5 and you stay on planet Earth and that's your life. We actually want to get off planet. We actually want to see how far the human mind can go, even if it's just virtual reality. But the point is, this thing that you see, you wake up, you go to work, you listen to the man, you pay off your cable bills. I mean, we're really trying to shift something entirely different than that, which is, of course, one of the reasons why I support a basic income. So people have a lot more time to develop their creativity, figure out what it is they want to do on planet Earth. But it's not just like working and coming home with a paycheck and barely getting by. I mean, like 60% of Americans are just like paycheck to paycheck. It's really quite horrible. So we're trying to create a brand new world, a new California dream, but it's really a new American dream, where the dream is not so much about trying to acquire wealth. It's because you're going to have a lot of materialism built in through AI, robots, and things like that already. I mean, we already live to some extent very leisurely life. If you don't live a leisurely life, it's probably because in many cases you're trying to make your life so abundant with material possessions. But the truth is, a lot of us can just go walking out to national parks and take a hot shower at the end of the day, do things that our ancestors couldn't even have dreamed of. In fact, kings did not live as good as this just even a few hundred years ago. So, I think people have to take a step back and say, maybe working is not the end for me for 40, 50 years to get to retirement before I die. Maybe there's something. And then, of course, this extreme longevity, that we're so many scientists around the world are working on, where humans will likely within the next 10, 15 years probably not age or not die, or at least not so much. And so we might live to 120, 150. So what do we do with all this time? And especially when robots do all the work. I mean, we're entering a brand new dream, a brand new interpretation of reality. It's not just America, it's going to be global. And, I would love my governorship to lead that way forward. What I just talked about was quite nebulous. And a lot of people, it's hard for them to get around because they got mortgages and kids going to school. But a lot of that is not going to be here literally in 5, 10 years, when we have neural links updating ourselves and we have AI doing everything and there's no jobs. So how do we get a society to enter into the Star Trek age and still keep people happy and not fighting civil wars and crazy things like that?
Well, I'm so glad you are picking up the torch of thinking proactively about all those concerns. I think even the experts, if you had asked them 10 years ago if we would have current model capabilities in 2025, they all would have said no. They all would have called you crazy for suggesting it. Now that we are looking at even more advanced possibilities, like you outlined there, a lot of those seem outlandish still to your average Joe on the street. How do you walk the tightrope of planning for a future that is becoming more and more likely with all of those developments, while also being able to sell it to the public as something that is reasonable and rational and not just far out crazy talk?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really difficult. Let me tell you, like, I'm the only politician really addressing a lot of the AI issues. And I assure you,
Yeah.
it's not that other politicians don't know what's happening. They're not addressing it because it loses votes. As soon as you start talking, like I just did in the last few minutes, about the future, even a 10-year future, you lose votes because it sounds
Yeah.
wild to a person who's driving to work, got 2 kids at home that are hungry, and he's got to pay, or she's got to pay their mortgage. That most people don't see that. And yet, at the same time, if you just take a step back, you realize, wow, a lot of graduates coming out of college right now cannot find jobs, or coders that are working in fast food restaurants, and that's going to be over soon too. And these are people that should have been making 6 figures. The point is, the world is already changing, and just because you're a politician that doesn't want to address it does not mean it's not going to change. So I'm trying to address it. I realize that it's probably costing me votes. At the same time, you never know. Like, my goal with the gubernatorial run has been that there might be a moment next June 2006, when the primary votes happen, that everyone starts to really just wake up and say, wow, maybe Zoltan has an idea on how to deal with this, because I just got a 2-week notice from my boss and I trained, for 15 years in college to have this job. And no one's going to be spared, not the PhDs, not the medical doctors, not the lawyers. I mean, AI is coming for everything. And if we're not careful, then we're going to be caught really behind the scenario. And that's when I worry, like civil strife, civil war, bad things can start happening because if you're out of a job, you can't feed your children, you're going to turn to something bad, either violence or whatever it is. And we don't want society like that. We have to transition in a way with basic income, using automation to make people's lives more leisurely and happier in order to have this kind of society just slowly go through this transition. And I promise you, life can be better for the majority of human beings. I mean, if you look out the window, the inequality has been growing rampant all over the place in the United States, in California especially. So people aren't happy. So we can make them happier by giving them lives that are more leisurely and more abundant. But we're going to have to make this transition through governance, and no one else seems to be talking about it.
It is crazy to me, and I appreciate your framing of AI-driven abundance for that reason so much. As someone who is so credentialed, so successful in your spheres of influence, it just is wild to me that the other CEOs, business owners of your stature aren't taking this threat seriously to their own jobs as well. You mentioned every potential position being automatable within the foreseeable future. And yet CEOs, Wall Street hedge fund managers, the elite echelon of our society don't seem to internalize that is potentially true of them as well. At least I don't see it in the seriousness of their approaches. They aren't talking about it like they're worried about being replaced. Do you have any insight into why that is? Why that
Yeah,
thinking hasn't penetrated?
sure. I mean, look, to get to the top of a business and to run these things, you have to be very strong-minded and very arrogant. I mean, your egos are often giant. And I have a ton of friends who are really smart, and they're not
Yeah.
necessarily in technology, and they're just like, yeah, whatever, Zoltan, you can go off and talk about your little AI apocalypse, job apocalypse. But they just don't see that this happening in the same way nobody saw COVID. It's kind of comparable to that, where all of a sudden there's going to be a moment, maybe it'll take a little bit longer, but we're going to say, wow, in 6 months, we've lost 10% of the workforce, something like that. And then it's going to be 25%. And then people are going to say, wait a sec, now we're looking at serious, and these are people that are never going to get new jobs. They're going to be transitioning into, using their savings, selling their homes, HELOC loans or whatever to get by, but they're not going to get by. It needs to be a transition to some other method. But in my opinion, it's very egotistical. Listen, these were the same people that were saying the world was flat a long time ago that were running governments and running the planet. And I'm not blaming them, because it really is impossible to think, it seems impossible. And AI is going to come for a CEO's job, which is very complex. You might be running 10,000 employees. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. You're never going to be smarter than this machine. And honestly, this machine's probably going to be hundreds of times smarter than you within 5 to 10 years. So we all have to prepare for that moment. And we prepare for it in a way that hopefully protects society, and you can trust your neighbor not to, come and steal your stuff. I mean, like I said, a lot of what I'm trying to do is just prepare society so that the transition is not violent. The transition is actually something that's beneficial. But as long as you have a giant ego, like so many people out there do, and they think the world is sort of flat, they're never going to accept the AI paradigm that's about to happen, that already is happening. I mean, if you just look carefully, you'll say, wait a sec, this is a game changer.
Yeah. Well, I want to return in that in a second, but back to your focus on universal basic income. One of the things that I'm worried about with UBI, although I understand it might be a necessary stopgap, is that it does seem to be a demotivating force for people. I've heard thinkers like Emad Mostak of Internet Intelligence speak about something like universal, I forget his exact framing of it, universal basic utility, something where you're providing resources to people where they can then leverage those resources into providing for themselves, basically. I think he talks about proof of benefit as a potential future stipulation for people. If you can show that you are providing benefit for your society, for your family, yourself, then you would be accrued value in some way. Do you think UBI is a long-term solution, or might we run into some of those issues?
Yeah, look, in my opinion, there's really no option other than UBI. And
Yeah.
I just be very clear, I'm not promoting universal basic income because I'm trying to be a nice guy or I want to give free money away. That's absolutely not. I started as somebody who's been an entrepreneur, and I think it's good to keep the books straight. But we just have to be completely honest. We're dealing with something very different. If 80, 90% of the jobs are taken in the next 5 to 10 years, which probably is definitely a possibility. And if not, then 50, 60%, massive amounts, whatever it is, easily enough to cause the biggest depression the United States has ever gone through. We have to ask ourselves, how are we going to deal with that? And the welfare system is already full, bureaucratic, full of a lot of waste, things like that. A universal basic income is very simple, and it applies to everyone. As the world gets wealthier, we can afford to keep everyone housed, fed, and with enough time to do the things that they want to do. That's kind of the goal of that. And by doing
Yeah.
so, they're not going to go out in the street and try to steal your stuff and shoot you. And that's what's important, is because the world can kind of move forward. Transhumanism, extreme longevity, these kinds of ideas, science can continue. And people can be happier as well. But the problem, though, is that, of course, UBI seems like a disincentive, but is it really? I mean, I would personally be stoked if somebody gave me an extra $500 a month. And again, my UBI might not be enough to offset all the costs. I doubt any UBI that gets passed is going to be one that immediately provides all the money you need to live a really wonderful life. It's unlikely, for example, UBI is going to let you be in the Bahamas playing guitar all day long, sipping, margaritas or whatever. It's much more likely to be like, we're going to give you a little bit of money because the world is changing, and we're going to hope you use that money, and then later we'll have to give you more money, as you can't get a job at all. I mean, there'll be variations here, but the point is,
Yeah.
we need to give something. As what do we do if you just spend $200,000 in college and you really can't get a job anymore in business because it's all AI based? Something has to be done. And you can't just say, oh, screw it, because there's too many people. There's going to be pitchforks all over the place. So UBI, whether it incentivizes kind of the will to work, or the will to, just do whatever you want, the truth of the matter is that it's needed to keep society stable. That said, I actually don't think it's going to make me, be less of myself. I'm probably going to want to work harder. In fact, a lot of studies have shown that give people free money, they use it to invest. So I kind of don't have that take that, there's going to be less incentives. It's sure there's going to be some people that just sit on the couch all day, but I think other people are going to go traveling, maybe go back to school. And you don't have to go to school to work. You go to school because you want to learn. Maybe we get kind of enter this classical Renaissance era. But I don't think that UBI is something that has any negative ramifications, or very slightly might, for people that just don't do anything. Honestly, I think those people aren't doing anything anyways right now. That's why we have a huge amount of people actually already on welfare that just don't want to work. So I think UBI just kind of makes it so that most people get this UBI, hopefully everyone, and a lot of people start using that. I mean, I think a lot of the people I know that got UBI would probably put into the stock market, or maybe into buying a new type of Jeep that they want to fix up, or so one of their passions, whatever it is. And I think that's the real argument to be made. Free money is never never turned down.
Amen. And no, I appreciate that in the short term, especially. It is likely the most effective measure. My worry more is not necessarily from the disincentivization front, but more so from how capitalism so far has leveraged competitive markets to improve all of our lives. I'm not necessarily a fan of a lot of the worst aspects of capitalism, but I do recognize it has been instrumental in pulling millions, if not billions, of people out of abject poverty. And that seems to be largely due to those market forces forcing people into creative engagement with one another. Do you worry about losing that competitive streak, or do you think AI will fill in at that optimization layer?
Oh, well, I definitely think AI will fill in. It'll fill in much better than we've ever done. I mean, it's going to learn capitalism, and it's going to learn strategy is way better than we can. So, and it's going to do it for us and probably make us wealthier than ever before, be more abundance than ever before. But I also got to just say, like, on a human level, I got to ask, is capitalism really the economic model that the world can use going forward in an age where 90% of the jobs are gone? That worked when the job market was wide open, but I don't necessarily think it works in a way. I mean, it might work for the economy in terms of AIs running the economy, but in terms of society, people, your neighbors, things like that, I worry that capitalism is going to have to adjust. our economic model is automated abundance economy. It tries to bridge socialism and capitalism together. I don't even like the word socialism because it's kind of misconstrued so much. But the truth is, capitalism can use um, more social incentives that can help push it down a certain path. And one social incentive is just this free base UBI, give it money to people and let them do what they want with it.
Mm.
And that still preserves capitalism because you have the freedom to spend that money how you want. But the actual, and that means free markets and things like that. But the outside of that, it's still, you're still taking care of people so you don't see them wandering the street taking drugs all day long. And I think that's why we really need a UBI. I think people don't underestimate, like, go back to the Depression era. We're talking about more jobs lost than, let's say, the Depression era, where you had people all across the country hungry. I mean, we're talking like, and that was when people were more civil. I think in today's day and age, you get 75% of the people unemployed. You're talking about civil war. People don't put up
Yeah.
anymore. It used to be that like a homeless person was wearing a tie and a coat and he would wait in the soup kitchen line and he was still a prideful, honorable person. That's not happening these days. These people are on drugs. They're angry. They're going to be violent. There's going to be bad things happening. And if you have a huge portion of the population that does that, then cities are going to turn to ruin in today's day and age. So we really need a UBI, and we need to get people in houses and get them fed, get them on their meds, and take care of them. And it's going to be best for a capitalistic society to do so.
Amen. I think that is so well said. Part of that lack of civility, it seems to me, is that there has been this mass suctioning up of wealth and resources to the upper echelons, almost destroying the middle class in many ways. What I mean, I guess I'm again coming back to this idea of how do we convince even that upper echelon that they are in danger as well and that we need these mass benefits, particularly as you're running for the state of California. Do you see a path to push that to the federal level, or do you think it is best to just use California as a test case?
Well, I think we should definitely use California as a test case just because moving slower on some of these things might be wiser from
Yeah.
just a kind of a national point of view, preservation kind of point of view. The checks and balances system in the United States is actually brilliant because it's so difficult to get anything done. But as a result, you never screw up your base. You never screw up your democracy. But that said, I mean, the question of billionaires, and you're right, the inequality has been growing tremendously. I'm not sure exactly, I would be supporting some type of billionaire gifting. If it was, I had a magic wand, I'd say something like, look, billionaires can exist, but a certain amount of that money has to be in their control, has to go towards nonprofits and governmental kind of ideals, because I'm just
Interesting.
not sure having a person on planet Earth with $400 billion is really psychologically good, philosophically worthy, and also just kind of from a just a societal point of view. I worry that pitchforks are coming. It's like it just sets one up. And while I've been grateful, for example, what Elon Musk and some of the other richest people have done for the world, I think that there needs to be more of an effort on their part to spend that money openly and publicly for the public good. I don't know exactly the structure for that. I know, like, Bill Gates has his kind of gifting, or it was Warren Buffett originally, and some of these people, and that's wonderful. But we need to make sure that that money circulates, because I don't think in today's world with social media the way it is that the billionaires are going to continue without the pitchforks. You can see it every day. You can feel civil war kind of on the tip of people's tongues. They are so pissed off. I was just reading the other day that, an Oxfam report said the 5 top billionaires, tech billionaires in the world's wealth doubled since 2020, and 60%, or 5 billion people of 8 are less wealthy than they were by 2020. So something is really out of whack there. And I'm not saying this because I don't think the billionaires are creating innovation. I mean, Elon Musk, people like that are really moving the world forward, thankfully. But just from a perspective point of view, to keep the pitchforks down, to keep society stable, there needs to be more of an open and public, I think, emphasis on these billionaires sharing their wealth in ways that actually contribute towards the good of society.
And making their lives better in the process. Obviously, revolution isn't good for anybody, including the tech elite.
Of course, and then they'll be legendary. I mean, look. I mean, one of the reasons Bill Gates is so liked, he might be disliked by the right, but one of the reasons he's so liked by the left is, and the same thing with Warren Buffett. These people have changed, hundreds of thousands of people's lives and thousands of organizations with their donations. So if more of the billionaires out there did this, we would have a better society. Then everybody would say, you know what? I'm glad you're rich because you have helped do this or do that.
Yeah, I think part of the mistrust on the right for people like Bill Gates is that they aren't sure that people aren't selling products and then trying to reap the social benefits of those kind of products simultaneously. So enriching themselves and still trying to position themselves as doing it all for the public good. You had spoken previously about the dangerous potential of deepfakes and how this technology is making us less trusting. Do you see a framework to increase trust even as this technology improves? My intuition is that open source and more transparency, sharing more of ourselves is a possible solution to that. But I haven't seen any thinkers talk about it seriously in those terms.
Yeah, very tough question. It's so hard. Yeah, I wrote an article a long time about how just being more open, even with our private lives, can actually lead to a lot more trust. One of my
Yeah.
classic kind of Vice articles when I had a column there. But I see the world breaking down further and much quicker than before with all the deep fakes. And I think it's going to become a nightmare to such an extent the government might even have to sort of like outlaw some things or nationalize AI at some point because of that, or at least some components of it. Because
Yeah.
it's really a vast majority of people are buying into whatever they see online and being influenced by it. And it's different than like the New York Times 30 years ago publishing an article. Maybe they have a bias, but at least you kind of understood that bias or a little bit of a left leaning paper. And the same thing with Fox News, they're right leaning. But now with the video content and stuff going on Twitter and a lot of people getting their news just directly from anyone, I think it's just complete chaos. And I think that's why you're seeing higher suicide rates, higher depression, all sorts of things. I think social media is going to be a lot worse than, let's say, smoking is looked upon these days. One day we're going to say, okay, no social media to kids, 16 and under or something like that. Maybe it's illegal because it's completely messing with their minds. And then you have AI where they're not even doing any skills or not even learning anything anymore and how to decipher. I mean, like my mom, for example, she's 80 years old. She cannot decipher what she sees on YouTube as real or not real anymore. And so she believes certain things. So I think this is absolutely going to screw up the fabric of society much worse than it's done today. Much worse. I think 5 years we're going to look back and be like, oh, this is horrible. And then there's going to be all sorts of crazy things like holograms or AIs being devious and things like that. That's going to make things even worse. So we're going to have to, as a society, get a real strong grip on these deep fakes because we're just at the very beginning. Very beginning. It's like a baby of what we're about to be inundated by.
Well, I'm just so thankful again that there are political participants who are seriously considering these issues, especially for the length of time you have. I know before we started recording, you said that you had been thinking about artificial intelligence at the helm of our political structures for some time. What do you think are the core characteristics that would make that kind of thing possible in AI for president or governor?
Sure. And I've written about AI for president before. And look, I'm running for office as a human being, but let's just be honest. What if in the next 3 years they create a version of a person or just an AI that is smarter than me, knows California better than me, is more honest than me, has no political baggage whatsoever? And, we put that in charge in the same sense that we might put a race car or, a machine that does the Rubik's Cube in charge. And it simply makes better decisions. It never has personal biases. It always chooses to do the greater good for the greatest amount of people. It never makes that mistake. I mean, this is a fact that all human beings have to look at. And these things are literally 2 to 3 years away now, if not 5, 7 years. But either way, it's literally in all our lifetime, most of our lifetimes. And we have to choose. You know what I mean? There are some great science fiction novels, that look at these kinds of ideas, where is it better to let an algorithm run your life knowing it's going to give you greater prosperity, rather than a human being like Kamala Harris or Trump, who both come with all sorts of problems and baggage and likes and dislikes. I mean, it's hard to dislike a computer that's always going to make the choice for the greater good for the greatest amount of people. That's a simple formula of being utilitarian, And if that could happen, I think a lot of sensible people would say, well, I want the greater good for the greatest amount of people with no biases. On the other hand, a lot of people are going to say, oh, we can't trust it, can't this, can that. But we've already seen from autonomous cars, they're just safer than people. They're just safer than people. And then AI for president's going to be safer for the country as well. It's going to make a lot better decisions. That said, I'm not in any way advocating for this right now. I like people. People are my thing. But I do see, having just graduated my graduate degree at University of Oxford in the philosophy department, I mean, I know that I can tell you that this is a dilemma that all thinkers are going to have to kind of face one day. And it depends on how rational we want to be. But again, as we started off this interview, people aren't rational, and that's one of the reasons that life is so interesting for human beings, is we're constantly choosing our own biases, our own stereotypes. We know we're being irrational, but it doesn't matter. We feel, and as long as we're feeling things and we like things, we'll pick our own method, even if it doesn't always make sense. So I think computers have a long way to convince us, unless they're in control, that we may not choose them for a while in terms of running us, governing us.
So well said. I appreciate your time here so much, Zoltan. And I do encourage everyone to check out his PhD work on quantum archaeology, if I'm getting that correct.
Yes, not PhD work, but yes, it is graduate work at Oxford on quantum archaeology. And it's fascinating. We didn't talk about it, but it's just there is maybe potentially a way to eliminate, or maybe deaths already being eliminated, if you can reverse engineer subatomic structure and then 3D bioprint out those blueprints. Because it means that we could, for example, if we had the technology, we might in 50 years go back to our conversation just 5 minutes ago, 3D print out ourselves and put ourselves right next to each other, and they'd be having that same conversation. And then if one of us dies, the other one is still perfectly there, intact. This is not DNA 3D bioprinting. This is actually subatomic and reverse engineering this idea. So in that sense, death can't really exist and never could exist. And then you could then bring back, all sorts of people, including, for example, Jesus Christ, or maybe Hitler, to be put on trial and things like that. So quantum archaeology is a fascinating field. Nothing is proven yet, but it is something that a lot of people are working on, and I did a lot of my graduate work on it.
I recommend, again, everybody check that out. It is just absolutely mind-blowing what is going to be possible here. Zoltan, I want to be cognizant of your time. Is there any parting message you want to leave with the voters of California as we sign
Sure,
off?
vote Zoltan. No, but go to my website, zoltanistvan26.com. And we can always appreciate small donations. Even a $5 donation makes a difference, because debates and things like that the more donations you have, the higher your probability of getting into them. Anyone can donate that's an American citizen across any state. So yeah, just check out my work, and please follow me on social media. And we have a lot of really wonderful speeches coming up. I'm speaking in Dubai. I'm in France. End of this month, London, so a lot of different places. So follow me, and hopefully you'll come across some real exciting times besides just the gubernatorial run, which is like just pounding down the AI subject and trying to get people to say, wait a sec, this is worth our time to think about.